Ladies and gentlemen, right now it is 4:58 on Saturday, March 21st, 2020. I am Master Thich Thong Lai. I would like to send my warmest greetings to all people in the country and overseas compatriots. This afternoon, I want to spend some free time to answer some of my disciples' questions who live around the world and are concerned about the situation of the corona Wuhan virus. I would like to invite you to listen to me read an email about their concerns. Please listen to this special email. Dear Master, we are a group of Buddhists in the United States who are very concerned about your health since you are living in an epidemic area, Seattle, Washington State. We always also pray to the Buddhas from the 10 directions to protect your health so that you will forever be in the main engine to guide us in religion and life. We have a few curious questions. First of all, the coronavirus, which President Trump now calls the Chinese virus, it appears to attack the United States and European countries during time of the U.S. president election season. Second, we are working at many important big companies in the United States. We noticed that some of the CEOs sold off their holding stocks 2 months ago and resigned at the same time. 2 months ago, Bill Gates, a billionaire from the US, the founder of Microsoft, had announced that 1/3 of the world population will be infected with the Chinese virus. Perhaps he already knew something ahead of time. 2 months ago, Bill Gates was the one who also donated $100 million to Xi Jinping to help stop the devastation of the Chinese virus in China. When you have time or more news, please keep us posted. Why did many CEOs have resigned and sold off all holding stocks? Shares before the U.S. stock market crashed and now are at negative. May your light of wisdom always shine and your cultivation is completed. Wishing you a great deal of luck to overcome this plague. Signed by a group of Buddhist followers in the United States whom are always concerned about the people of the nation and the survival of Tham Nguyen Amatet temple system in the United States, which was founded by you. This question from a group of my Buddhist followers asked that 2 months ago, when the Chinese virus wasn't worldwide spread in the world, why did the billionaire Bill Gates have this prediction? He said in the future not far, 1/3 of the US and the world population will be infected with the coronavirus. We now see Bill Gates' prediction has come true. This Buddhist follower group who work in many American countries saw that in the end of last January and the beginning of February, there were a lot of CEOs who resigned and simultaneously sold off their holding shares before the U.S. stock market depreciated. I myself also saw this event as well. Please listen to my answer. After reading this question, I went around to ask my friends. These fellows of Americans knew the situation. They said these companies that have many CEOs resigned were Disney, Bayer. Bayer is the largest pharmaceutical manufacturing company in the world. I think the owner of this country is in Germany. Then, MasterCard Company, Victoria's Secret, Hulu, Uber Eats, IBM, MGM Resort, Lincoln, Salesforce. These 10 companies are different from each other, with 10 CEOs resigning last February at the same time. Even the billionaire Bill Gates. It is not a coincidence that all the famous CEOs of the world's leading company in the United States resigned at the same time. Under U.S. training law, an incumbent CEO cannot sign his or her holding shares. If they want to sell their shares, they must resign before they can sell their own shares. According to my research, in the United States Supreme Court of Justice, there are 9 judges. One of the judges is a Democratic member. She is old and her husband was the director of many investment companies in China. She also sold many of her companies in China. This morning, as I surfed the internet, I knew that an independent inspection committee was neither under the president's nor the legislative and judicial executive. They were not influenced by the 2 parties in the U.S. Congress. They started investigating the resignation of 10 CEOs of 10 major companies present in the United States. These 10 CEOs, after resigning, they massively sold off their holdings. The question set out here by the Congressional Special Inspection Committee independently found out what these 10 CEOs, head of the companies in the United States, how did they know the Chinese virus situation so that they could sell and resign? These sites specialize in investigating independent news. This morning, I was also following the investigation of an independent journalist on Edgar and Wonder Channel. This site specializes in investigating independent news. They have 4 YouTube videos that have been distributed on the global internet, which I watched carefully on the video number 4 of this website. I need to highlight the following issues. First, they updated the important events in Chinese virus flu pandemic. They asked why there were so many CEOs of the big companies that I mentioned previously resigning. The resignation was due to something they knew beforehand. What was the source? Did they know the outbreak will be spreading, therefore they resigned 2 months ago? If they resign now, there is nothing to say, but they knew 60 days ago. Perhaps they were preparing for a big event that was about to happen. Or maybe they were victims of some powerful force behind them that they have to resign. That is the question the 2 independent journalists of this media posted on the global internet. They also asked the billionaire Bill Gates, who donated $100 million to Xi Jinping. Did this money go to the Chinese people who are living in Wuhan City, or did the money have some conspiracy theory or theories? Does it really reach the hand of compatriots Wuhan who are suffering from coronavirus outbreaks? They went to investigate and they found that 60% of the Wuhan residents who died because of this Chinese virus were all dead at home. So, the statistics of the Chinese public told the world were just false numbers. A Chinese phone company had recently reported that it had lost over 14 million customers. They used a high-tech cell phone tracking to search. They found that all of these 14 million customers had absolutely no sign of leaving the company. Normally, the customers had to call before they leave the cell phone company. They had to report to terminate the contract so that they can switch to another phone company. An employee of this company announced on a website that they have lost 14 million customers, which is consistent with the number of million mobile phone services out of services, which were abandoned or incinerated. Out of the requirement to work at the 20 nearly established Chinese communist mobile crematories was not to be afraid of ghosts. That is the requirement of the application to join the crematories in China. They said that because there are corpses, when burning, they will scream. It is a normal phenomenon that the workers have to be brave. These 2 independent reporters on the website said that they investigated and interviewed workers who burned in the incinerators. The workers said that those who were affected, not seriously ill, not dead, need treatment. They are taken straight into the cremators to burn to death. The independent investigator by journalists in the United States found the answer. Xi Jinping wants to genocide the people of Wuhan because it would be less expensive than to supply treatment to the people of Wuhan. Furthermore, Xi Jinping knew that Wuhan is a city located in Hubei territory. Despite all the officers who are working for Xi Jinping in Wuhan duty, Wuhan is still strongly influenced by Jiang Zemin. You know that Jiang Zemin's son is one of the directors who runs two microbiological research laboratories in Wuhan and Beijing. The independent source investigated by independent American journalists found that every 14 million phone accounts terminated, they calculated that each account was used by one Chinese family of 3 to 4 users. Then they multiplied and they calculated the number of deaths in cremators, who were up to 70 million or 80 million people. The number of cell phones piled up when the infected Wuhan people were burned alive under the orders of Xi Jinping. To cure a person from the disease, from death, would cost a lot of money, while getting an infected person into the cremator is a lot cheaper. At the same time, the Chinese communists are eliminating the virus from spreading. These independent U.S. journalists spoke up and posted on their channel. One of the reporters said that they have provided full information of what they had investigated, in which they called conspiracy theories. The director hosted the program himself announced that they will notify every U.S. what they know and found out about the Chinese virus. The information was provided by the acquaintances who are living in Wuhan City. One additional point that they have mentioned was that the female Major General of the Chinese Liberation Army, Miss Chen Wen, she is responsible for operating 2 microbiological research laboratories in China. The Chinese communists have only 2 laboratories for biological weapons. The B4 is in Wuhan City of Hubei province, and the second one is in Beijing. This Major General, Cheng Wei, was presented on January 25th in Wuhan City. She made an announcement that all staff who are working in the Wuhan laboratory must be careful to keep the coronavirus contained. Don't let the coronavirus leak to the outside because of the national and the laboratory safety. In a way, her words confirm that this Chinese virus was engineered at the Wuhan laboratory. Recently, they had confined a person who worked in the Wuhan laboratory. This man sold hundreds and thousands of laboratory animals, such as monkeys and mice, after testing with the Wuhan virus. These poor animals, including monkeys, dogs, and mice, after being exposed to the Chinese virus in the Wuhan laboratories, were sold to the market for the local people to consume. It was the independent American journalists who investigated, learned, and the news leaked out. Some employees at the Wuhan laboratory sold the tested animals to the people of the Chinese communists to consume as healthy animals. These independent journalists of the United States have sounded an alarm about big American companies. As I said earlier, there were 10 companies. These CEOs simultaneously resigned, including Bill Gates. Bill Gates raised $100 million to donate for Xi Jinping to stop the Chinese virus. For no reason, he announced to the online press that in a few months, the world will have 1/3 of the population infected with the coronavirus. The world nearly has 9 billion. According to Bill Gates' statement, 1/3 of the population will be infected. This statement has been proven because the number of infection is increasing. Last month, the United States had a dozen infected cases, but now it has more than 20,000. In Australia, Europe, and South Korea, the infected cases increase exponentially. How did Bill Gates know this so well? The gesture of Bill Gates giving $100 million to aid Wuhan City for this pandemic. Was this fund really reaching the hands of the victims from the Wuhan laboratory that leaked the corona bacteria? Or whether it fell into the hands of the Chinese Communist officials? As I speak, an independent congregational ASEAN Congress is working on this issue. As far as I know, the independent American journalists and Egger and Walters are questioning why the coronavirus appeared during the U.S. presidential election. It was not a coincidence. It was a Chinese communist attack with the help of Jiang Zemin. The Chinese Communist has lost control of the pandemic in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Hubei. Yet, Xi Jinping did not dare to speak up to criticize. He kept his silence. The independent American journalists, after their investigation, said that if Xi Jinping speak up regarding Jiang Zemin's son got his hands on the spreading the Wuhan virus, it would be like confirming to the world that he had no control over the Chinese territory, that some part of China was controlled by Jiang Zemin's faction. Therefore, Xi Jinping must bitterly swallow and keep silent, dare not to speak up. These are investigations by independent American journalists who posted on Egger and Walters' channels. Can you think of the reason why 2 months ago, these CEOs of the 10 giant American companies knew in advance what was going to happen in the United States and around the world? They resigned simultaneously to give them the legal rights to sell their holding shares. I repeat, it's not natural that these guys are holding stock markets. The months before, the U.S. stock was about 27 to 28,000 points, but now it's down, and almost everything since President Trump's inauguration. According to the independent U.S. journalist, since the day the U.S. President Donald Trump started his presidency, 3,000 CEOs have resigned. Why did they resign? The independent journalist in the United States put forward a hypothesis. This is his theory. The first hypothesis would be that these CEOs were doing business in connection with the Chinese communists, so they were afraid the U.S. president would punish them. So they had to withdraw by silently resigning before the stock market collapse. The second hypothesis is that they resigned in exchange for a condition, an implicit agreement with the U.S. government to let them free from their mistakes. In my opinion, in this election season, the U.S. President Donald Trump devotes all his strength to fight against the Chinese virus. In the history of the United States, from the Civil War between the South and the North, to the First World War and the Second World War, no president ever worried about the people as much as President Trump. For every little thing, for example, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, he concerns about the food for the poor students, these students who have no money and receive free lunch. Now all the schools are closed. These poor families do not have money for lunch. All the children from kindergarten through 12th grade who have low income all have free breakfasts and lunches. President Trump had ordered from the White House to allow the parents of these students to have the right to go to school to receive the free meal. The president also took care of the issues of electricity and water for the people. Anyone who temporarily lost their job because their factory closes for the isolation of the Chinese virus outbreak would have the right not to pay electricity and water. The utility companies are not allowed to discontinue the service. Third is a subsidy for family present in the United States who work and pay taxes. Each will receive $1,000 with the first supporting package. In addition, those who are continuing being laid off because of the factories closing will not have to make mortgage payment up to a year. Furthermore, students with school loans, known as student loans, in the state of the Chinese virus outbreak are allowed to defer their monthly payments. The U.S. president does everything he can to keep the U.S. life stable. Millions of flights canceled due to the companies in the United States due to the effect of the Wuhan virus. The president has offered an aiding package for compensation to airline companies in the United States. Once the coronavirus is under control, the Chinese communists will be brought out for slaughtering on the foreign affairs forums in the world. Because of the Public Science Ministry of Chinese Communists has pronounced a public statement published in the New York Times. The Ministry of Science declared that all staff working in the biological laboratories must prevent the coronavirus study in the lab from exposing at all costs. If it does, it would affect the health and economy of the Chinese communists. In a way, the medical ministry has confirmed that the coronavirus had come from the Chinese Communist laboratory. The Ministry of Science also condemned those who brought the laboratory animals that were tested and sold to the market to infect the Chinese people. Xi Jinping, in his very tight speech, but there were gaps, and the New York Times published the part when Xi Jinping also instructed all laboratory operators to protect the microbiology laboratories. Protecting the laboratory is safeguarding the Chinese government, just like the Chinese Minister of Public Affairs. The Chinese Communist Party General Secretary has confirmed that the coronavirus emanating from Wuhan City is clear as day. You can see the United States use all means to fight against the virus. Once this pandemic is settled, the United States will not leave the Chinese communists to be alone. In my point of view, the President Trump personality, if the Americans have over 1,000 deaths, you will see. The United States has ordered and called on all the reserve forces to return to their units. I don't know the reason for this action, but it's the truth. I also have a few disabled currently serving in the U.S. Navy. They say that currently in the South China Sea, not only 1 or 2 aircraft carriers, but there are 7 aircraft carriers present in the China South Sea. Each carrier has escort and cruisers following. Why did the United States put the majority of its force, even the newest carrier, the new one launched 5 months ago, also present in the Sea of Japan? I want to make it clear that it is possible to have war, even though I know that the President of the United States does not want the war to happen at this time, because if the war is happening now, it will not benefit the United States and the people. The Americans are tired and already in crisis because of the Chinese virus. They don't want to pressure the Chinese communists, but the United States has predicted that war will be going to happen one day, not too far. I already had a talk how the Chinese communist was choosing a battlefield. The information provided by my female disabled who has a husband who works for Xi Jinping government. The Chinese communist was choosing a battlefield. I will use myself as an example. If I left the power in the Amitabh village out, I let the plague rave in the village, and I had no way to save the members. I didn't burn alive in the affected people in my village. No electricity, no water, no food, and left the people to starve. Certainly, the people in the village will no longer count on me, and a rebellion will emerge. From my situation, we can definitely relate to the situation of the Chinese Communist regime. Earlier, on the Egger and Water website, they had commented that the Chinese Communists could not stand until the end of March to avoid the people from rebellion. The people working for Xi Jinping are still influenced by Jiang Zemin. When people are facing the famine and the number of people died are 7 to 14 million according to telephone company statistics, these people no longer use their phones. They didn't call to switch carriers, nor did they rush to cancel their accounts. So where did they go? They went in the cremators, and these cell phones were thrown out the door of these incinerators. Those were already on the other side of the world. Now all the hatreds of the world have been put against the Chinese communists. At the same time, the CEO of 7 major American companies resigned 2 months ago. Were they aware what was going to happen? Which independent congressional investigation committee asked? What did these people know in advance? Why did Bill Gates give $100 million to the Chinese communists? And how did Bill Gates predict that 1/3 of the population in the world would be infected by the coronavirus? Bill Gates and 10 other CEOs resigned at the same time, even though these 10 companies are not joint companies. They all operate with different rules, working styles, and operating methods. Hence, the Independent Investigation Committee of the United States is controlled by the U.S. Congress without being subject to legislative and judicial executive. They are investigating why these 10 U.S. CEOs simultaneously resigned in February. And they simultaneously sold off all stocks before the stock market in New York crashed. I would say that President Donald Trump absolutely does not want war, because war is not beneficial in his election. However, in my personal opinion, there is no other U.S. president who loves the people, take care of every little thing to big things for his people. To me, he has done his best. And all the governors, like Democratic Party governors of California and the governor of New York is also of the Democratic Party. These two governors have a lot of animosity toward the President of the United States. But because the people shake hands, they all agree to work together. I was talking about the issue of American companies. A series of CEOs resigning 2 months ago, indicating that they have a link with Chinese communists. There must be a scheme called conspiracy theories to attack the Americans. It is not a coincidence. These CEOs have learned about the news and know about the conspiracy theory of the Chinese communists. The investigation of the U.S. Congress, an independent body suspecting these CEOs are doing business with communists. They can run, but they cannot hide. The President of the United States is busy dealing with the coronavirus. However, when the outbreak is under total control, these companies will be dragged to court because of their illegal actions while doing business with the Chinese communists. A conspiracy theory was alerted by the website Edgar and Walter. I already drew public attention. I am here to answer to my disciples. Whether you believe me or not, that is your own choice. I only have this talk because my disciples had sent me emails and I replied to them. I know that I was not wise enough to tell anyone. Back to the issue. Some say that despite how the United States carefully control the infected, numbers still increased dramatically, while in Vietnam, with open border policy to the Chinese communists, the number of infected people is only a few dozen. Let me tell you, 2 months ago, the Vietnamese communists had no capability of testing coronavirus, so they were just suspecting. If they need to do a test, they would send blood and saliva samples to a Chinese laboratory. China would take 4 days to send back the results. It was up to the Chinese laboratory if they decided to send back the result or not. After the U.S. gave $37 million in aid, and the first U.S. doctor team gave the swab to meet the coronavirus, they only need 6 hours to a day to determine the test result. At the same time, the Communist Party is very afraid of the people knowing about the devastation of the coronavirus or Chinese virus, so they try to cover as long as possible for their own good. The price they pay is the price of Wuhan City. As you can see, the facial expression of the president of Hanoi, Vu Duc Trung, and the face of Nguyễn Thanh Ngang, president of the Ho Chi Minh City. These two know more about how many people dying and how many people are infected than any other, but they are not allowed to say. They have to hide the truth, and it will come out at some point. The majority of Vietnamese people are not allowed to say the truth. I have a few Buddhist followers in Tay Nhân. They call me to tell me that many people died. However, when they report, the government told them just to bury the corpse and said the cause of death is common sickness. Anyone who decides to report to news, they will be fined over 10 million dong. If they decide to post online, they will be fined and imprisoned. In Wuhan City of China, the internet was completely suspended. In Vietnam, the internet is still available, but under micro-monitoring. It is as bad as in China. Vietnamese people at some point will die too much, and they would know that the cause of death was not because of the wind, heart attack, common cold, diabetes, high blood pressure, but death is from the Chinese virus. They will flare up, and at that time, they have nothing left to fear. According to the Independent Investigating Agency of the United States in Vietnam, the number of real deaths had reached 20,000. The number of dozens of people was just the number that the Vietnamese communists want to announce so that they blame the virus that is transmitted from Western countries, England, South Korea, Europe, not from Wuhan City. Why did the virus originate from Wuhan, avoid to spread through 6 border provinces? Why did it travel around Europe to Asia, then spread to Vietnam? It was because Xi Jinping's order. The name Chinese virus is called by President Donald Trump, but also condemned by Xi Jinping. So the Vietnamese Communist is a henchman of Xi Jinping. So now I ask the people in the country to look at the rapidly increasing number of infected in the United States and in Europe. The number of deaths increased rapidly in Europe so that you can prepare. Please tell us the truth. Please tell the truth to the people, otherwise you will pay a price like Xi Jinping is praying. When the people have faced death, and that day is the day you will repay the debt of what you are hiding. I know well in my last talk that 10 CEOs of major U.S. companies all resigned at the same time a couple months ago. They sold off their stocks, which means they had something in conspiracy theory. They knew ahead of time, so they did these things. In a democratic nation with democracy, there is a judicial, legislative, executive, and an independent investigating body of the U.S. Congress. Those who do business with the communists will not escape the international law and the laws of the United States. Sincerely yours, and to all compatriots in the country and in the U.S., be calm to follow what the U.S. President is saying. Don't trust left-side newspaper and left-side television network. The media, independent investigation team, and the independent journalists said the epidemic was the reason why the left-side media favors because they can make money. They need more likes, and the more people watching their broadcast, the more money they will get from advertising. Their priority is their benefit and money. They are not true media. There must also be a lot of media out there because of the money, not true information to you. You need to filter out all television, news, and forums are merely for money, not for the benefit of the nation. Most of these media during the outbreak season misrepresent the facts from the White House and from President Donald Trump. So you need to be careful. And if you still criticize the President of the United States, there is no other president who is better than the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Sincerely, and I continue to update this situation as Chinese virus, so that many compatriots and my disciples, especially the people in the country, will know well so that they can be ready to survive this pandemic. With the suppression of information, the Chinese Communist Party is paying the great price. The Vietnamese Communists would pay a hefty price as well. I am the person who is delivering this information not for money, but for patriotism. Best regards.